My trusted advisor came back from the last academy wanting to use something called the 10-minute knock, but we're having a little trouble figuring out how this is going to work. So at the 20 minutes point prior to the end of the client progress meeting, and that would be, to your point, 10 minutes into the referral conversation, then we suggest, as a part of this process, the trusted advisor begins a verbal countdown and says to the client things like, with the 20 minutes we have remaining, let's write some notes to these on the books to these people that you're proposing introducing me to, or whatever. So they just do a verbal countdown, and every 5 minutes or so, whenever it's natural, kind of as everybody takes a breath in between thoughts, the trusted advisor, starting at that 20-minute point, starts doing this verbal countdown. That's very important because it gets the client's mind prepared for the end of the meeting, while there's still time to get things done. And that's what makes it not disruptive, is the client knows this is happening. So then by prearrangement, as you say, precisely 10 minutes before the end of the meeting, the actual 10 minutes of the actual end of the actual meeting, so 80 minutes into the meeting, administrative manager softly knocks on the door, quietly opens the door. Like, this is all very quiet, almost, it's totally not disruptive. So there is some social skill involved here by the administrative manager, not to be a bull in a china shop or interrupt a client or say things that are going to be disruptive. So we've done this for over 10 years in my firm, and it is the skill of the administrative manager that pulls this off properly. So quietly opens the door, quietly makes contact with the trusted advisor, and kind of whispers and mouths, I'm sorry, I just want to remind you that your next client appointment, and, just being sure not to interrupt a client if they're talking. And so the trusted advisor silently nods, kind of acknowledges, but doesn't pause the momentum of the meeting. So this is not a big disruptive moment. It's just kind of a quiet, just wanted to remind you of the next client. Okay, so then the administrative manager comes in and sits down. And it's at this point the administrative manager's role is to document what's happened in the meeting up to this point. So after quietly sitting down, the administrative manager is poised with pen in hand, with paper, and at the first opportunity, the trusted advisor cues this next little segment up. Trusted advisor looks the client in the eye and says, look, we've covered a lot today, but I want to provide you with a bullet-pointed list of the important items we've discussed, as well as the action items that we agreed to. And so at that point, the trusted advisor just kind of looks on their notes and refers to their own notes and says, here's what we discussed today. Here were the important key high-level items, and here are the action items, and turns to the client and said, is there anything on your list that I've overlooked? And then this gives an opportunity, and this is beyond the scope of the toolkit, clearly. This is something that we do. This is something that I've been asked about. I've documented it, and I'm just sharing it with you. So when you say to me, yeah, but you don't have anything in your process to send out the client this bullet-pointed list of things we discussed in action items, I go, that's right. It's beyond the scope of the toolkit. So this is just an email that I think is a great follow-up to the client, just kind of acknowledging the minutes of the meeting. Now, what some advisors do, I've noticed, is they just update the GPS after the meeting so that the client now has a current copy of the GPS, which is emailed to them with all of this included. But the point of the 10-minute knock is, if it's done properly, it's not intrusive. It's never intrusive. That said, when you get to the 10-minute point, if the advisor isn't walking out of the conference room with the client, kind of chuckling and shaking hands and parting ways, then something's got to happen, because it's possible that meetings will go over. With this discipline in place, you've created the greatest probability that meetings end on time. So this shows clients that you're serious about honoring your commitment to end on time. It also, by doing this verbal countdown, if there are any important issues which have not been discussed, then the client's prompted to speak up, because as the advisor's saying, with the 20 minutes we have remaining, then the client knows if there's other issues, they better get to it. And I've seen it with my own eyes. This is what happens. I do have a couple things I need to talk about. They start to kind of get in their head the idea that we're coming to a close here. And also, if there are extraneous conversations, which clients have this, some clients have this tendency to go off track and talk about all kinds of things, like just chit-chat about life and their grandchildren and their fishing trips and whatever. All that starts to stop. All that stops. It ceases. And clients who love to chit-chat, when they start hearing these countdown, they politely eliminate the unnecessary small talk often, and that the conversation is going to be highly focused from that point on, as the countdown happens every 5 minutes or so. And when there's that knock on the door, it's not unexpected, it's not disruptive, it's been forewarned, and it works just great.